Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to Channel Your Light with myself, Erin Chandler. I was really drawn to pull a card for the current energies happening in the collective. And as I shuffled the deck, flew across the room, which is highly appropriate for the after the storm is what this card is, whether it's on the micro or the macro, whether you're in it or just coming into it or just passed through it. This particular message holds a lot of wisdom, but it also holds a lot of guidance. Now, typically when I pull cards, not only are those channeled messages that is coming for the dominant energy to be shared, but in addition, it's a mixture of the actual text in the Sacred Rebels book, as well as channeled messages from your guides and loved ones in spirit. So it is a mixture of the two. So I hope you enjoy this. Let me know in the comments if you're feeling all those swells and all of the stormy weather, whether it's inside or out around you. Perhaps you're feeling totally at peace. Either way, you are always exactly where you're meant to be, even if that means that you are in the middle of what seems to be chaos or things falling apart, or things just swirling. I'm getting the feeling of like energy swirling consistently and constantly. So this after the storm card, when I often see cards, and particularly when one flies out in this kind of a nature, is that when we go through life, there are many, many storms that are happening. There are some significant storms happening in the collective at this time. These are storms that can impact us on an individual level, as well as on a community or tribe level, and on the macro, on the world stage level, and even further than that, I'm hearing in the multiverse level. So when we are jumping timelines and quantum leaping, sometimes it's super smooth, it's very smooth, and other times it becomes this kind of like chaos energy where there are people from multiple timelines showing up. There's the old things showing up, there's the new things coming in. Perhaps there are things showing up where you thought it was one thing, but it appears that when you experience it, that it's actually something else and not what you expected, and sometimes not what you wanted. I'm being told to point out very clearly that it is after the storm is this card. And it is card number 1. So it also represents the death and the rebirth. So the old timeline and the new timeline, the old version of you, the new version of you. One leads or bleeds into another, but it can often feel disjointed or disconnected when it comes to timelines and consciousness and storms. I don't know about the rest of you, but oftentimes I welcome the storm when I understand what is coming after it or the purpose of it. And when I don't understand the purpose of it, sometimes we tend to resist it or fight it or want to push it down or pretend it's something else that it isn't, or even deny it. So this card is super important. I'm going to allow the messages from our loved ones in spirit and of course our guides, because I have some pushy guides here right now letting me know that it's really important that one of you have asked for help or you have asked for some clarity. And I'm hearing so loud and clear, the guidance for you is that your help has been heard. The universe heard you and is rearranging all of the things that you've asked for. So the storm that is headed your way or that you're in right now is actually clearing your path. And what that means is, as things build and when we have a storm, there's often debris left afterwards. The imagery that I'm seeing right now is after the hurricane, there's all this debris everywhere and there's broken houses and there's trees that have been uprooted and there's just stuff strewn everywhere. So it's important for everyone on the collective timeline, regardless of which timeline you've chosen, regardless of what version you are stepping into or you're becoming, even if you're in the midst of creating as we approach this new new moon. The new moon, I want to say the 19th is the date that's coming in for me right now. May the 19th is important because this must be scattered in order for you to fully embrace this new moon energy and what is coming forward. So it could be an old way of doing things. It could be an old paradigm about yourself. It could be an old view. It could be old relationships. It could be a letting go. But the storm and what's building is actually breaking. I'm being specifically told it's breaking the ties and binds and chains of the context or the concepts of the consciousness that you have been existing in order for you to be free of it. And sometimes I'm hearing for some of us in the collective, sometimes we need a massive storm in order to break us free from it. Sometimes we struggle to get out of that way of being because it's so deeply ingrained. Now you'll notice, some of you, the storm is, you're going to be noticing, I'm being told very clearly, that the people around you are the ones who are deeply ingrained in it. And it can be difficult. I'm hearing sometimes it's a struggle to keep your peace when everything around you is showing up in that storm or chaos energy. I'm hearing flow like the river again. So I will read from the card now. This is all just coming in from your spirits, guides, ancestors, wisdom as we move through these next paradigms and phases. And I'm also being told for masculine energy on here that you are continually moving through so many shifts and timelines and thought processes that it's almost like you're elevating every single day. Now, it is true that the only thing that is constant is change, and we elevate every single day. That is such a truth. I know I experience that on the regular, and that we're constantly in a mode of change. However, some people's mode of change is much slower than other people's who move at a really fast rate. So this is a message for a masculine energy who's moving at an extremely fast rate of expansion or change. And it's like flipping through versions. It's like epiphany after epiphany. So I'm being told your guides are saying that you need to slow, or it's not that you need to slow down, but there's almost like a need to recognize that there are some people around you. I'm hearing it's your friend group specifically is going to be moving at a slightly slower rate, and you might feel a bit of a disconnection. This is also for a specific feminine energy I'm hearing now as well, this friend group piece. They're going to be moving at a slightly slower vibration on the timelines. You don't have to worry about them not coming with you, but this can cause some disconnect for you and how you feel. And I feel like your guides, your loved ones, your starseed families are saying not to worry or think too much or make too much about that disconnect, because the truth is they're all going to be moving at their own rate. Even though you have your own world that you are creating and your own timeline for expanding and jumping timelines and all those wonderful quantum epic things, there's also the aspect of the other people move at their own rate because they have had a different journey than you. In a nutshell, really is what it is. And in addition, they are also connected to a multitude of other people. So even though they're connected to people with you, this is somebody with your partner, I'm being told. Your partner is connected to all the people that you're connected to. But in addition, you have people you're connected to that they are not, and vice versa. They have people that they're connected to that you are not. And the message on this is very clear, that just to have some grace and some peace and some compassion, both for yourself as you move so quickly through those levels of mastery is what I'm hearing, but also to have compassion for those who move a little bit slower, because slower is not a bad thing. It's just what's most appropriate for their soul-based journey, what their consciousness is able to handle at that time. We don't want to be inundated with something before we're ready, because that can actually slow down the evolution process for us. That is some people, whereas other people, having that happen rapidly and quickly actually speeds up their evolution. There's a lot of differences between souls and their journeys. and how we process things. And every time I go to read this card, I have somebody's guides keep stepping in, and as well, your higher selves, I'm being told, are stepping in as well. I'm also being shown that one of you is a tarot reader, reading the tarot. And I'm being told to tell you that your tarot readings are going to change slightly. It's almost like instead of you reading the tarot is reading you, is what I'm hearing. That you'll go through periods of integration where you're reading tarot for others, but sometimes your guides are explaining to you that as you're on your process, the tarot is reading you. So there can be a flip and a flop. And that happens to everyone in the intuitive landscape. When we're first on our journey, oftentimes we're doing it for ourselves, for our own personal growth and evolution. But we then move into the scope or the scope of doing it for others or sharing healing messages for others. And when we move into that realm, we often have that experience where we're not just reading cards for other people, rather the tarot is reading us rather than us reading the tarot for another individual. Sometimes our energy is so dominant and we're not receiving our own messages that the tarot reads us. And that is actually a beautiful thing. So if you've noticed that if you're a tarot reader or an intuitive and you've noticed that your messages that you've been sharing for other people are really pertinent to you, this is twofold. One, you are in a process of healing. We heal with other people. We don't just heal on our own. So we often have experiences with other people who are on healing journeys as well to help both sides, like both yourself and the other person, to heal. And powerful, profound healing happens when two people meet or a group of people meet and they're all on a healing journey. They have the power to both identify and to evolve that healing process at a much faster pace. So for the tarot reader or the intuitive that's having that experience, just know that it's okay that the tarot is reading you, and it's okay that the messages are for you as well and they resonate. My dog Ava here is getting all wishy-washy with all her chains, and she's scratching at them like, break out of the chains. So I feel like that is another message for somebody here, not to worry about perfection. When you're reading messages or tarot, you're being called to just be flawlessly yourself. And flawlessly means having flaws. And that's a really incredible place to be able to read from your heart and to share from your heart, whether it's tarot or intuitive messages or things like that. That allows for the expansion for your soul, because everybody right now on the collective consciousness, the second reason I'm hearing truth be told is a card that I'm seeing in my mind's eye, is that sometimes when we're reading tarot or reading cards or doing messages for others and the messages end up being for us, is we are a collective consciousness. So as we begin to merge and meld into that collective consciousness, we start to notice all of these additional signs and synchronicities. We start to notice that there are people around us who there are multiple messages for. This is a result of the collective consciousness merging on higher timelines, recognizing that they are all one, and yet we are separate. So some people need to actually do their healing journey separate, to keep their energy and consciousness separate because of the journey that they've had during the healing process. Whereas other people, you'll find that at this time, they're beautifully coming together in the one, understanding and recognizing the fluidity of souls, of consciousness, and that can also be part of the storm as well. I want to bring this back to the storm because I'm being told this card is referencing, and Ava's doing a little dance here. It's referencing after the storm. So the chaos that's really coming up for the collective at this time really is intended to heal us. So I'm just going to read from the card now. I'm being told now is the perfect time to drop in the guidance from this oracle deck. So after the storm, there is a storm about, and it is either headed your way or just passing through now. Don't make a thunderstorm mean more than what it is. You don't have to fear it. You might even feel excitement about it. After all, a thunderstorm is just nature's way of gathering energy together that needs to be released. With a release of tension, relief and freedom soon can follow, and often with a fresh perspective and perhaps the gift of a promising, hopeful vision for your future. So somebody's guide is pointing out right now that you are likely experiencing a storm, whether it's an emotional storm, an electrical storm, a mind storm, a feeling confused about your purpose or where you're going, or feeling a disconnection. Perhaps you have old things being triggered that you thought you dealt with before. This is like the scraping the bottom of the barrel is what I'm hearing. It's almost like I'm being shown you being put into the barrel and tossed over Niagara Falls and into this tumultuous storm that you have no control over. So it's interesting that they're giving me that image and the feeling of that, of just being rolled around and tossed around and feeling like you don't have control, whether it's emotionally, whether it has to do with other people, because remember, you can only control yourself, not other people. So the rest of the card goes along these lines. It says, perhaps a particular storm building within you or around you is causing you to quake in your boots. It might be a storm of building emotions, threatening to erupt, or already exploring or exploding seemingly beyond your conscious control. It may feel uncomfortable, like an uncomfortable sense of emotional or psychological pressure within you. Like if something doesn't happen, you fear that you might burst or you might miss out, or you're in the wrong place, or you're doing it incorrectly. So your guides are very, very clear. You're not doing it incorrectly, but you must flow with the storms that have come, because they truly are meant to scatter what you don't need anymore. And sometimes the only way that my dog is running around here, like expending scattered energy. So it's so interesting that she's very much in line with that. So the guides, just to get back to that, as the interruption, it's kind of like what the energy feels like, right? This running around, this pent up energy. Storms usually build all this energy up, and it really is intended. Sometimes we don't know that we're holding on to something or an idea or a concept or a limitation, even egos. You may find, like for me, I know sometimes I really have to stop and be like, is that my ego, or is that a genuine understanding? Like, am I coming from a place of a healthy ego, or am I coming from a place of fear? And that's something that I think we all address at some point during our lives. But this particular storm, the storm card, and after the storm, it allows us to discard not only that which we know we needed to, but maybe had trouble or struggled to do, but also it removes the things that we didn't even see. I'm seeing somebody's being blindsided right now by something that they didn't even recognize, and it's been going on since childhood. And it's a beautiful thing. And I'm being told, whoever that message is for, the feelings that could come up with that is deep shame. And shame is typically placed upon us when we are made to feel that we are doing it wrong, or we are inherently wrong, or when someone shames us. I'm being told sometimes people can shame us for not being like them, or not following their way of doing things, or if they feel that it is not up to snuff, and they use shame as a way to try and get you to align with their viewpoint or their perspective. So in the macro, sometimes we can take away learning lessons from that, but typically speaking, shame is not a good tool for learning. It actually does more damage and trauma, and actually ingrains the patterns that they're trying to stop into the other person when we use shame as a way to control, to manipulate, or to make ourselves feel comfortable because we're uncomfortable with the way that someone else is. So whoever this message is for, you have experienced deep shame across your lifetime. It could be in family units, but this deep shame is actually coming up to be purged right now. And a storm likely is coming, or you are in the middle of a storm, or you've just experienced one and you're just coming out of it, where that deep shame was triggered. So the deep shame is an important thing, because the collective consciousness is filled with a lot of deep shame. It definitely was used as a tool to control others or to make ourselves feel safe. but the collective consciousness is healing those deepest trauma wounds at this time. And sometimes it is a storm that is required to kick up those deep cobwebs within us that really push it up out into the consciousness so that you can heal it. Because after this storm, I'm being shown again that reference at the very beginning, my Ava says, Mom, it's me that's showing you this. I'm your guide. Yes, Ava is my guide. So it's so funny that she's pointing that out. She says, remember, everybody needs to remember that your loved ones past are actually here to guide you in spirit form. You are never disconnected from them. There is no death in that aspect. They are always guiding you and always surrounding you. The disconnect that you feel that you have is really just you integrating and moving into these new paradigms or dimensions of yourself because you're always connected. So Ava says she's showing me that after the storm image, like after there's been a hurricane and there's all the debris everywhere and the broken trees and the limbs are everywhere and everything is in complete disarray. She says that actually is representing the things that needed to be scattered from your energy, because this new moon on the 19th, you cannot take those paradigms, those ways of being, and those deep wounds with you. So if you've been feeling this storm energy and the building of it, know that this has to come up to bring the energy up in order to be scattered so that you no longer carry it with you. If you are resisting whatever the storm is, whether it's inside of you, in your family unit, in your tribe, in your community, your friend circle, just know that this storm, it's supporting your growth at this time. I'm being called to look at the specific messages here. Here it is. This storm wisdom offers you the gift of bringing things to a head and clearing them away so that this energy can be freed from a pattern that has had its day and is ready to become something more and something new. Sometimes the pressure that fuels the storms of our lives have been building for a long time without us even being fully aware of it. It might be pressure from our own minds creating unnecessary burdens upon us. It might also be pressure to appear a certain way or to fight against life out of mistaken belief that it's necessary for survival. Like sometimes we feel like the victim mode. I'm being told somebody, you may feel like you're in victim mode. But I'm also being referenced, the victim mode is the concept or the deep trauma wounds that it is necessary to maintain that victim stance in order for you to survive, not because all the circumstances that you're in victim mode. It's that the trauma wound of what you feel or what you had to do to survive sometimes meant that we had to be a victim. And that paradigm is really being shaken up in the collective at this time to be released, because you don't have to fear that you will not survive. It's a survival mechanism. And when we maintain that, we lose the ability to understand that we can thrive, because the only thing that the victim mentality associates with is survival, which means we never get to move to the next timeline of thriving. And it also means that when we're presented opportunities where we feel like a victim or like somebody has done something to us, this isn't to negate that, yes, there are times where people physically or emotionally or mentally do things in certain circumstances that appears to be to us. And that's because it is being done to us. But in addition, it's also for us when we have the ability to recognize that right now during this rapid expansion, we're jumping timelines. That means we have the opportunity to view that circumstance or that perception that we viewed it with as a tool for healing, to release the victim and to step into our power mode and say, I will not be a victim anymore, and I'm going to thrive, and thank you for this gift. There's somebody on here who your guides are literally have been pleading with you that it's safe. It's safe for you to let go of that. It's safe for you to know that you can thrive, but that only happens when we let go of the modalities or identities that we have held onto in order to survive. survive. So it's like, I feel like whoever this is, you're going to be taking a quantum leap, or you just have taken a quantum leap. And the paradigm, it's going to feel like I'm hearing a whole new world. It feels like a whole new world. And I'm also hearing an Andy Grammer song, fresh eyes, fresh eyes. So during the process of storms, we do tend to resist them. And I'm being told that if we focus on after the storm and we recognize that this storm is actually supporting our growth in some of the most expansive ways right now, it allows us to just purge. Instead of resisting, it's flowing. Instead of fighting, it's surrendering. Instead of blaming, it's almost like the opposite of blaming is accountability. But sometimes it's a very neutral aspect. It's almost like instead of reacting, we want to observe. And sometimes the reacting that we have is the actual purging of those old paradigms, old timelines, old wounds that come up. I'm being told right now that this message is complete. For those of you who resonated with this, please do a like, share, and subscribe. Let me know in the comments if this resonated for you and the different messages that come through. I'm wanting to shift into and try a few different things on this channel. Let me know what your preference is. If it's live channels with a video, if you prefer just the voice ones, everybody has a different preference. And I'm just curious to know how people resonate with those different aspects. You can find in the video description below a link to that Oracle deck if you wish to purchase that. You can also find in the link below, we are running a retreat in July. It's a spiritual expansion retreat for divine feminines. If you feel like you need to have some replenishment, some activation, and some true and real support as you move through a very fast, rapid expansion, please do check that out on the website that's linked in the video description box, because there are actually only a few spots left. So if you feel called, now is the time. And as always, I am wishing you all much love, many blessings. Thank you so much for joining me here on the channel, and I will see you in the next video.